All right, welcome back. We're going to be playing another rapid chess game here. So let's search for an opponent. And we're moving up slowly in the rating range, so we're searching about at the 1800 range, and that is what we get. It looks like we're playing with the white pieces here, and we're going to play king pawn. So we have the move e5, and we'll continue with knight f3 here. And we have this is actually a gambit called the Busch-Gass gambit here. We have bishop to c5, kind of an obscure opening that I'm not actually familiar with here. So let's take first and actually accept this gambit. And depending on what black does here, we can actually play d4 and reinforce this knight here. So we have knight f6, and let's play d4, I think is the most common sense move here in this position. Hitting the bishop and reinforcing the knight. And so we have the bishop drop back to e7, a little bit interesting. And now we can reinforce this pawn with a bishop. We could also reinforce it with a knight here. I think both options are good. But let's go with a knight, since we have both the pawns in the center. Let's go with a knight. And I think maybe he didn't play this theoretically, because I don't feel like he has compensation for this pawn at all that he is down. Now the knight can drop back. We have d6. The knight can drop back to f3, but that I think runs into bishop g4 here, which is not terrible. We can still play knight f3. We could also play knight to d3 and avoid bishop g4. We could respond f3 in that case. I like both, but maybe I like knight f3, I guess, better, because it still allows our bishop to be developed here. So going off that consideration, let's just drop our knight simply back to f3 here, where it was originally developed to. And probably bishop g4 will be the follow-up here. And knight c6 is another valid follow-up. Now we can develop the bishop to b5, kind of in Ruy Lopez style, and this is also kind of a classical idea we have here of where we want to develop the bishop. So bishop to b5, I think, works nicely in this position. And we're threatening actually to d5 here, just winning the knight if he doesn't react correctly here. So now we have bishop to d7, breaking the pin here, and I think it is time probably to complete our kingside development and castle. I don't think either of these pawn pushes are really necessary yet to break apart the position. I think we can just castle here and play it pretty simple. And we have a very nice center here. We're up a pawn, so I think we are very happy here in this position, and our pieces are a little bit more active here than black's pieces. So now we can drop the bishop back to a4 here. And the idea of a4 is not so much to continue this pin here. It's because maybe of knight a5, and the bishop is kind of trapped here into an exchange for the knight. So I think bishop a4 here I favor over. Well, it kind of doesn't make that much of a difference, I guess. We can also drop our bishop potentially back down to d3 here is another option that I find quite good as well, just avoiding any b5. So let's actually go d3. Let's drop our bishop back down to d3, and all of our central pawns are still very nicely defended. All right, so now we have bishop to g4, pinning this knight. Obviously, now a threat here is knight takes, or the knight moving in, let's say if we push to add pressure here. So after, we can first play h3, but it might not be advisable because of takes here. So we might be forced to play a move like bishop to e3, reinforcing this pawn here. Yeah, I think I like bishop to e3, simply reinforcing the pawn on d4. And now we can think about playing h3. But h3 now, I think is a little bit suboptimal, and I'm kind of scared of a of a queen sacrifice here. However, let's calculate concretely if he has any like merit to this sacrifice. Here, takes, queen takes, and he's threatening to move in his knight here. And try to get some checkmate threats on us. So do we have a way to defend against that? We have this move. We have bishop to f4, kind of thematic, and we can cement our bishop. Maybe takes here. Yeah, I think we can still push a3. And I have to calculate a little bit on whether we are scared of a sacrifice on h3, but I think it does not actually merit a winning attack for black here. I think we can defend against a bishop sacrifice on h3. So creating hooks like this on the king side, you have to be a little bit, I guess, careful of creating a hook that his piece can like take. So now we can have we can push g4 and forget about the bishop completely. We could also push, let's say, e5 here. And I kind of like the prospect of e5 after takes, but then we have takes and then g4 here. Takes, yeah. I think I like the prospect of e5. Alright, so let's actually, we could actually take with a knight, and after bishop takes, take here. And that actually might be the most accurate, but then what if knight takes is the question we should ask, and now we're just like bamboozled here a little bit. So I think let's keep it simple. And now if knight takes, I think we can take back here. I think that we capture with a pawn first, and now knight takes is a real option. So we can definitely take with a bishop here, and in response to knight takes, we devastate black here on the queen side. So let's take with a queen. And this b7 falls after knight takes e5. And his king is still in the center with serious problems here. So it might be best for him to move this knight even back, like practically speaking, for practical chances. But I think at this point, this position is just devastating for black to try to play anymore here. So yeah, so we have this coming with tempo here. We have the b7 pawn falling with tempo because I hit the rook, right? So we're not worried about this, this, I guess, bishop here. And now we can play something like rook to d1, setting up a threat of sacrificing here. We could also take a pawn here. But I maybe like rook d1, you know, developing our piece, and also after takes, we can recapture the rook. We also have to keep in mind that, this pawn might be falling after our rook hits this square. Are we actually in danger of getting our queen trapped if the rook hits this square? I didn't consider that because we can't go back on this file. We can't go here. I think we are actually in danger of getting our queen trapped here. So maybe yeah, I think rook d1 still. So rook d1, rook here, check, take, and now we can evacuate our queen. So I think rook d1 still works tactically against them trying to trap our queen, but it is kind of risky. A little bit risky here. Maybe I should have evacuated my queen first and actually try to play it safer here. But I think tactics work out in our favor if black doesn't react to this bishop first. And then if we remove the knight, then our queen is not trapped here. Is something we can notice. Here. We could have also maybe gone bishop to e4 here, threatening to double capture our queen for 2 rooks here and trying to get him to exchange off the knight. Also threatening to play rook d1 with tempo, but we will see how our opponent reacts here. All right, so we do have this line, and I think what I calculated is we can take here, but I think what might be even better now is a desperado, a forcing move here. Takes the rook, takes here, takes, and then king takes is probably best, and then we can take here and take the rook. And at the end of that line, we've given up a bishop, rook, and queen, and we've taken a pawn, bishop here. Let's see, takes with check. Okay, I think maybe takes a check here, takes, and then takes wins. And then we've given up a bishop and a queen for a pawn, queen, and bishop. It's hard to say, but let's see. This first recaptures here, 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 here. Is there any follow-up we have? I'm not sure. I think actually bishop takes here is more accurate. I think bishop takes is slightly more accurate. And that is because he is forced to use one of his tempi to take the queen, rather than So now we can take a queen. I'm noticing we could also maybe take a rook here, but then he takes a rook. We take the last rook. He takes with check. We take, but then our queen is safe. So maybe we can take a rook now. Take. We have to calculate this accurately here in order to have an advantage. Take this rook. Take the other rook. I think we can take this. Because if takes. I think we have to take this way. I think my initial calculation was still better. He has to take the queen here. There's no other way, I don't think. Because if one of the knights takes, then it's no longer captured here. So now we play this and we hit the knight with tempo. A little bit confusing here, but so the knight can drop back, let's say here with tempo. And now we have to find a way to untrap our rook. This is something I did not consider, but I think we can actually take this pawn here, and I don't think our rook is quite trapped. Maybe king here. Let's see. Because our rook cannot go to any of these squares. It obviously can't go there. Can't go there. I think we have to take this pawn. And then maybe we have to sacrifice our rook for this piece and play it up material here. So now I think our rook is actually trapped, but we still have a favorable endgame here after this. I think, yeah, he takes back, and now we can guard one of the pawns here. Is there a more active way to guard the pawn? I do not believe so, so we can play here. And we're up slight material. And we're looking to now activate our knight here and target the other pawns. We're looking to activate the rest of our pieces here. And what is our advantage? Our advantage is that we have many more pawns. He has 3 pawns. We have 6 pawns here. And also 3 pieces here. So he has a rook in exchange for our bishop. But I think this is definitely a winning endgame. We can say here. So now rook here doesn't really come with a threat, really, of like getting to our back rank. So I don't think we have to look to trade rooks. We can play knight here. We can play knight here first, activating our knight, and look to jump our knight in and make him uncomfortable here, because knights can be very tricky. So after something like this push, we can jump our knight in here, and our knight is octopus knight over here. So it's so something like this I think is now pretty good. And he's struggling to defend adequately here from all the threats of the knight. Something like knight c5, and now our knight is an octopus over this whole position. So we don't have this square anymore, but you can notice we have a revealed attack potentially that can be set up here. The question is if there is anything useful that this knight can do while setting up this revealed attack, because we definitely don't want to offer up the knight because then we're just down material after that. So we could actually come back here maybe, but then the rook likely will double stack, so we maybe don't actually want that. Maybe we want to play a move such as like rook here. I really want to get my rook activated somehow, but obviously we don't want to blunder it. So something like rook here looks okay. Also some pawn moves look solid. Something restricting the knight also looks solid, but let's play rook to e1. Let's play rook to e1 for now. All right, and now I believe our pieces are nicely guarding any of the important infiltration squares unless he wants to trade rooks here. And we have this alibi to escape if he wants to trade rooks. So now we can maybe play c3 and then try to solidify here. The issue is here, 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 here. And yeah, he cannot move to our second rank here. So I'm not afraid of him exactly trying to trade on our back rank. I think that actually may favor us here if he goes for a rook trade and tries to simplify this endgame. He also relinquishes control of this square, but knight check in response to this rook moving there I think would be a mistake. Maybe not. Maybe it's still fine. So now, I mean, we could go here. Maybe I should have played that first. You can definitely go here, and after this takes. Okay, here, here, takes with check here, and this knight is attacking this pawn. The rook doesn't really have a good square to go. Maybe, yeah, I think this is probably winning. This is probably winning. Maybe we even want to take this. Maybe we even want to take the rook, because after here, check, and we go out, his rook is kind of in an even more goofy spot. So here, he takes the rook with check, we move out, and then his rook is kind of left in a goofy spot in our back rank here. So I think actually taking this rook might be a little bit more accurate. And we also have a fork idea here. So we move out here. And his rook is left in kind of a goofy location. So it is on our back rank here, but I think we have this check for one, and we're scooping up this pawn. And after something like this, well, let's see, we could even play here. And let's say he attacks one of our pawns, we can probably defend it here. Knight check here. Check takes. I mean, I think this is probably winning. I think there are several ways to win this position, but I like this one. It seems a little forcing. takes. All right, and now we have ways that the knight can return to the center here and support. We can also think about activating our king, but let's actually return the knight to the center, probably, because the rook cannot come back here. And it supports our pawns here very nicely. So we play this endgame very carefully here, but we have now a winning advantage, I think. Busch-Gass Gambit, we carried an extra pawn. Interesting. And something like this, yeah, this now we can consolidate. We can trade pawns. I think a very obvious way we want to eliminate most of the counterplay, and then we can play something like bishop to d4, centralizing our bishop and hitting this pawn twice, and then get our king in the game. So I think this is now moving to a great position for us. I think we can play now this, cutting off his rook from this file, and also threatening this pawn here. And now we want to move our king up in the game here, most likely. Yeah. Now we move our king up very nicely. And we can even look to trade, yeah, and just use the winning massive pawns here, this massive amount of pawns to win against his rook. Yeah, and now we just have a winning advantage here. So we can take our time. G4, trading off the last pawn, actually is fine. We can even play like here first. I like the fact that F2 is supported by the bishop, but yeah, let's play this first. And now we can essentially win the game here. We've simplified successfully here the rest of the game, and we can play here, taking opposition here, and we're preparing to move our pawn up. Yeah, the rook checks is a little bit annoying, so we'll just move back. And we can actually, we probably want to get our pawns in front here. So noticing how our bishop controls these key dark squares here, we will move our pawns up and storm the king from this side here. All right, so now this I think is good, and we can kick out his king with our bishop here and play something, yeah, king f4, and now repeat the process. Our bishop moves back up here, and we're continuing to roll the king back. The move like this. All right, now this should be pretty simple here. The king is quite restricted, and we move our king onto the G file because our back is protected by our bishop here. It got our back. It has our back. So let's continue to roll the pawns. Let's continue to roll here. Something like this, I believe, is just winning on the spot. how do we promote here? We can play this, but black takes and gets this. Let's see. Let's not overcomplicate it here. We can play something like this. Yeah. And after rook checks here, yeah. Getting driven back, but there is a way we can get in here. So we cannot push this pawn. Now let's try to get our king back around this way. Because the rook cannot return over here. And notice how the bishop restricts the enemy king from stepping in and threatening this pawn. I think essentially it is unstoppable here, this idea now. After he moved his rook to the spot. I don't think he was able to hold a draw. I think I have too much pawns here. But interesting. Taking the Busch-Gass Gambit all the way into an endgame is kind of crazy. But no. It's a win. I'm sorry. But this is not a drawing position. I don't think. King h6, the bishop and king block these squares from being accessible to the king, so we will promote here. It is inevitable. And if the rook sacrifices itself, big deal, we still promote here. All right, so we actually have this, and his intention is to go back here. So I think we can play this, and if then rook drops back here, we can give this check, forcing the king away from the pawn, or the rook to come back, and then we can promote. So I think this is the winning move here. A little bit tricky, but I'm sure there are other tactics that also win, but this check can divert the attention, I guess, away from the pawn. Or we could maybe more simply play something like this. The bishop to f6 check, and then the king has to move, and we promote. Takes on f6, and we we'll go with this one. Here, here, promote, takes, 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 and then we promote this one. The simplest way we can end this game, hopefully. Alright, so we take and promote this pawn. And it's GG. Alright, let's put the king in a box here. We can also put the king in a ladder mate here. Alright. Now the king is forced to remain on this rank here. H file. And we will have checkmate very shortly here. There's not much going on here. So yeah, I thought that was checkmate. I don't know why it lagged so much, but that is mate. Kind of a nice little mate there. Queen h4 check. Alright, so 69 moves. Let's go into the game review here. And that was an 1800. I don't think I've ever encountered, well, I have in Blitz, but kind of a random opening, especially to be playing in a rapid game, but very offbeat. Let's go over the opening here. Bishop to c5 is the Busch-Gass Gambit, already a mistake, and knight takes e5 simply is the best move, and there's like almost no catch to it, is what Stockfish says. You can play d4, simply kicking back the bishop, and then drop back your knight here to f3, and you have a big center here, and you're very, very happy. You're pretty much winning. They can already resign here, essentially, is what the engine evaluation gives. But there is some point in which I made a mistake, and black actually had the advantage here, I'm seeing in the game. So we will see what point that is. So bishop dropping back to d3, and the reason that I did not drop the bishop back to another square is because both of this knight jump, and also because I could run into b5 here, which was a little bit annoying. So bishop to d3, bishop to e3 simply guards pawn on d4, h3, kicking away the bishop, and then e5 here. I guess a little bit of an inaccuracy, and we'll see why. After takes, 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 we take this pawn on b7. Okay, and we're still up a considerable advantage here. Rook to d1 is still good. Rook f to d1, it says, is a little bit better, more optimal. And then, yeah, rook to b8 is the move that I had to consider, because it does technically trap my queen. There's no escape squares along this diagonal or here, or of course any other way. So my queen is trapped here, but bishop takes h7 is the tactic here that is winning. So rook takes, and then, yeah, so I did calculate this correctly. So bishop takes d7, followed by the rook taking the queen, and then taking the bishop here saves. And this is not even something I considered at the end of this line. I didn't see that my rook is actually, funnily enough, getting trapped here because it cannot return to, obviously, any of these squares here. Except it can take the pawn, and then what I can do is desperado. I can sacrifice myself for the knight, which is a great move, so I don't lose material here, and I remain up a solid advantage here because this is essentially a winning endgame. B3, of course, defending our pawn, and our second rank is critical here. Rook comes here as an excellent offensive resource in the endgame that our opponent has, and now our knight jumps in and starts to create problems, right? Restricting the knight is also a very good option here, but I didn't really worry even about the knight jump to h4. I didn't really consider it even that much of a threat. So yeah, knight to c5, the rook moves away, and I didn't really see any merit to any of these jumps revealing an attack on the rook because the rook simply just comes here. So rook to e1, it says a little bit of inaccuracy. I could have played a pawn move like g4, but c3 here, and we're solidifying our pawn structure here a little bit because of bishop to d4. And now rook to b7, or sorry, knight to b7 is more forcing here. Yeah, and this, I guess this was a mistake because after rook takes, yeah, I don't know. Maybe there is some forced draw here. I didn't calculate it that deeply. I just thought, well, this knight is probably optimal. But let's say if rook captures here, is it gonna show the analysis? Yeah, now it's still, I guess, better than if knight takes. But knight takes was a little bit of a mistake, apparently. And I didn't judge this position as a draw. I judged it as winning for white, but apparently there is some... Yeah, he's able... I guess the fact is he's able to use this e2 square to get to our second rank, and that creates kind of problems for us. Knight to d5 is actually a mistake. Wow. Because of rook here, but I was calculating rook to b2, b4, takes. Yeah, and then I thought this endgame was probably still winning if we can trade off the knight. But a4, he missed this move, which I thought he would play rook to b2. I was calculating that. But a4 allows us to play bishop to d4, and now we have a very nice bishop in the center there. Our king arrives at the center, and trading off the knights is probably the easiest way to go about this, because now we have a winning amount of pawns here that are going to storm up the board. So check. I could have guarded the bishop, but I just simply dropped back, reorganized, and started pushing the pawns here. So the bishop can drop back, kicking the king out, and then we can repeat this entire process here. So the two pawns are a very strong method to roll in front of your king and to push the opposing king back here. So we have king g5, check, mate in 2. Yeah, I guess I missed this check. I should have been looking for checks, captures, attacks, of course. But this check, and you can just promote, and there's gonna be mate very soon there. So when you're in a position like that, you can always look for checks, captures, attacks. But now we've just prolonged the game. We've just made it into a longer version here of a win. So takes, and now we can finally promote our other pawn, right? And of course this is a forced mating sequence. Just moving the king back against the back rank here. and putting him against the corner and checkmating him there. So that is the game there. So let's see if we can open up a new tab here and possibly analyze the Busch-Gass Gambit, which I don't know if even Stockfish will know the ideas behind like continuing this gambit from the black side. So e4, e5, knight f3, and then bishop to c5 is the Busch-Gass Gambit. And yeah, the correct response, it says, is simply just to take the piece. I mean, if you don't see a reason why not to take a piece, you should probably take it, because against like something like queen to e7 here, you simply have d4. The knight is protected and you're hitting the bishop here. And bishop b4 check, you just solidify even more. And now black can resign already. But yeah, so queen to e7 is a follow-up. I've probably seen in blitz, and even in blitz you should be able to find a move like d4, just guarding the knight. So besides that, what else does black have in this position? Maybe a move like knight to c6. This like a Chiodoni gambit is what it says. I'm guessing the idea is d takes c6, and then maybe like knight f6 and getting out the bishop here. But this is kind of just like a goofy way to just lose a pawn and not have any compensation, is my opinion on it. But c3, because you want to just control the center with d4 here, and then I guess like queen at h4 is a try to checkmate here. And I guess g3 now is a mistake because of, yeah, queen takes e4 and you're getting just massacred here. So obviously you don't want to blunder this sort of scholar's mate type idea, and you can just play queen f3 and it guards both the pawns here and you're very happy. Queen has to drop back is what it's saying. And then so I guess the point is it's actually pinning your pawn, because at d4 you get like bamboozled here. But queen drops back to try to like pin this pawn, but you probably just have, yeah, you can just push your other pawn here, b4, bishop to b6, and then maybe like, yeah, I was thinking knight a3, just reinforcing the bishop. And also this c4 square looks very good for your knight as well, hitting the bishop. So yeah, I mean, it's essentially like you're looking to lose, I would say. Like that's kind of just what you get when you play something like this in a longer time control. Honestly, it's worse than like this kind of reminds me of a worse version of the Stafford Gambit. Like a really messed up version of the Stafford Gambit. But I don't think they even played it like that. It might have just been like a misclick or like a wrong move order is why they played that. But yeah, they didn't even like turn it into a gambit. How our opponent played was just e4, knight f3, bishop c5. And they didn't even like have it be a gambit. They just played knight f6, which runs right into d4, and the bishop has to drop back, and you can reinforce the center, and it's like you've already essentially lost the game almost if you're playing against a good opponent. So yeah, that will be the conclusion of this video. How to deal with like gambits or something you've never seen but you can sense are like inherently probably losing on the spot. So hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you in the next one.